I'm going to take you inside a $20 million practice sale. And this is really for veterinary practice owners because you'll find this fascinating, the inside scoop. And the goal is that you'll know the playbook that we used to create such an incredible result. And whether your practice is worth 2 or 20 million, I think you'll find this fascinating. For those that aren't practice owners, I'm sorry, this will be terribly boring. So let's go ahead and dive in. So who am I? I'm Dr. Michael, founder of Transitions Elite and DVM Elite. And we have sold over $250 million worth of veterinary practices, with those funds going directly to you as the veterinary practice owner, not to the buyer. And very passionate that you get the most and the best deal terms, not leaving that value on the table for the buyer. So let's dive in. Selling your practice isn't just about the money, though. It's also about the lifestyle that you're going to have afterwards, preserving the legacy of the practice, and also protecting you and your family, and really for the future. I mean, this is generational wealth that we're talking about here. Now, Dr. Sarah was in her mid 40s. This was not about retirement. This was about being smart and realizing that we are in a bubble market with crazy valuations. And as an owner, it's really your time to be able to consider, should you continue to work in your practice for the next 10 years, or is now the time to be able to maximize that value? And she also realized that doing it on her own would be a big mistake. She would leave a lot of money on the table. You'll see exactly how much as we look at the different bidding deals that came in. And so she enlisted the help of Transitions Elite. That's how I know this story so intimately. And I've redacted her last name just for privacy purposes. So this was a $20 million plus deal. And we'll go into all the details and the deal terms, which are even more important for you as an owner in many, many ways than just the total transaction value. So Transitions Elite really manage each part of the deal process, and I'll explain exactly what those are. The first part is preparation. So, what does that look like? It's organizing your finances, it's making sure that your operations are clean and streamlined. It's creating a detailed buyer profile. Who are you looking to sell to? It's very important that we get a cultural fit because we're not going to sell to somebody that you're going to hate. You're going to have to work there for several years. So, this buyer fit is very important. The second part is the practice positioning. So once we have everything organized, we then go through and we maximize the profitability through what's called an adjusted EBITDA. That's where we take your actual EBITDA, do all these significant add back expenses, for example, one time legal, personal, family members that are on the payroll, and this boosts the profitability substantially. And the other thing that we know, and or that's important to do, whoever your advisor is to make sure that they are experts at this type of market. So they know what expenses the buyers will not incur. So we can take these out of your profitability statement and boost that profitability. And this is a very significant part of the process. Then we create a attractive buyer package. So we put everything together in a package, again, talking the language that we know the buyers speak. These are finance individuals. They are not veterinarians, and they really value different things, and we know how to speak their language. Number three is very important, is the outreach. So in this particular case, we were able to outreach to 20 different potential buyers. Now, there's a larger universe of buyers, but these are the pre-qualified. These are the ones that have a track history of doing what they say they're going to do, and we know they've got the money in the account, so they're not going to negotiate, tie up your practice, and then try to get the money. I mean, that's a disaster. So these are 20 pre-qualified. And the goal is to create a competitive bidding process. So let's see exactly how this played out for Dr. Sarah. So we had 20 buyers that decided to sign the NDA. 12 expressed serious interest, and these were virtual meetings with the owner of the practice, Dr. Sarah, to really talk through the dynamics, answer any of their initial questions. Of those 12, 7 were invited for in person interviews. And it really is an invitation because we're not going to invite anybody just because they have a pulse and they say they're interested. So, based on that virtual meeting, Dr. Sarah was able to say, you know what, I like these guys. And they were able to say, yes, we're still very interested in the practice. So this is a very important next stage of the in-person meeting. Now, what was interesting is that we really are passionate or believe strongly that this in-person meeting should be in a very time-boxed weekend. This was over 2 days. Everyone stays at the same hotel, and it creates this competitive pressure because they know each other, the buyers, and they know who the big dogs are. And so if you see the big dog checking in or at the hotel bar, then you know you're going to have to put in a pretty darn good offer. Otherwise, big boy, big dog is going to come in and take it on you. So what happened next? So after that 2-day weekend, which was in person, then it was the bidding process. So they had 3 days to submit their best offers. So let's go ahead and kind of zoom into what each of these offers looked like. So offer buyer A, total 20 million, 18,000 in cash, 2 million in 3-year installments. Good offer. Buyer B, 15 million in cash, 4 million as a rollover investment, which means that you get 4 million in stock in the buyer. We have to be very cautious about this because we don't know the future of the buyer. We don't know the valuation that you're getting on the buyer's company. We don't know if there could be dilution, which means they raise more money. And so now your 4 million is dropped down to 2 million. So this is kind of a risk. The way to think about this is flushing a toilet, and these funds are basically gone. They might come back in the future, but there's no certainty around this. And 2 million tied to earnouts. So the total in this case was 21 million, but really, again, look, it's 15 million versus 18 million of cash. So these are the considerations. Next was an all cash offer from buyer C of 20 million. Next, 15 million. So you can see the big difference. We have buyer E that had 13 million in cash, 3 million in the buyer entity, and the remainder was partnership. So basically, this was representing a 20% retained ownership by the seller. And the practice owner, Dr. Sarah, she didn't want to do this, to be quite frank. She wanted to sell her practice, do her time, work in it, and then be able to move on. So freedom was a very important thing. So what happened? So all these offers came in, and speaking with Tom, who's on our team, really excellent at executing deals. I asked Tom, I said, why are all these offers coming in at 20 million? And the answer is, which is correct, that this is what the valuation is, and everything's pointing at 20 million. And in our discussions, we both decided or realized that 20 million was simply a round number. And so while the valuations are coming in close to that, everyone was just picking 20 million. And it's very funny. The more that you get into this, the more that you realize there's logic and science, and then there's real emotion and humans being arbitrary. And as you can distinguish between the two items, you can really generate a lot of extra value. So in this case, we thought, this is just 20. Let's put in an offer or a counter offer at 23. And at first, everybody on our team was like, wow, how can we do that? But this was extremely valuable practice. And so whoever was going to buy it was really going to be motivated to do so. So we went back at 23 million. And the final offer, which came in from buyer C, who already was big and in cash, was 22,500,000 all cash. 22,500,000 all cash. Really incredible, with only a 2-year employment agreement. So 2 years and then completely finished. And this offer, just to give you a sense of timeline, was 10 days after the initial meetings, in-person meetings. So this happens quite quickly. So once you decide, the goal is that we do this fast, we don't drag it on, and that this deal and transaction gets completely finished. And these funds were in Dr. Sarah's account. So $22 million in Dr. Sarah's account, 90 days after the final offer. So this is to show you the importance and speed of working with somebody that will drive this. And the fear, well, again, it's not about transitions elite, but if you work on your own, that 90 days becomes 180 days, becomes 270 days. And through that time, different scenarios are going to happen in your practice. You're going to lose a vet, the revenue is going to have a bad month, and the buyer will come back and say, you know what? I know we said 22.5 million, but now that you've lost a veterinarian, I mean, that's not doable. And so in fact, the price now is 18 million. And you've already told your staff that you're selling, and you're exhausted because it's now 200 days through due diligence, and it's kind of a nightmare. Or they'll say, you know what? These two financial documents, they don't quite match. And so we're now uncertain what is true and what is not true. And we don't feel comfortable with the 22.5 million. We're only going to offer 16. And more often than not, practice owners actually take that. And I understand why, because they're exhausted. And so you don't want to be in that situation. And so having some advisor or expert, not just an advisor, really representation, driving the entire process, making it organized and making it fast, will add this extra value. So in this case, what's incredible to see is that it was 7.5 million. So she spent, well over a decade building this successful practice. And in this 100-day period, $7.5 million of value was generated. Because otherwise, if she was selling it on her own, she very easily could have accepted this $15 million offer, which still would have seemed like an extremely good offer. So, of course, this gave Dr. Sarah real financial freedom. It secured her family, and she really liked the buyer because the buyer was a financial buyer. In other words, the buyer did not come in and change the logo, change the practice. The buyer put her in charge as medical director, which we'll see in a moment. And really, she was still able to control the practice and drive on the client side. The buyers simply just took the financial end. And so there's a quote from her that really it was the team transitions lead that made it happen. And it pushed the price way beyond what she had expected. And I know this is, absolutely true in this case. So what happened after the sale? So she had a very short employment agreement, which was fantastic, 2 years. She had medical autonomy, so she controlled the medicine side. And her team, actually, when it comes time to the buyer taking over, and this is very common, will provide the team raises, will provide the team even better benefits. And then what happens is that various team members now have the opportunity to actually increase their professional development because if they're just working in their practice, they're not going anywhere from a professional perspective. Whereas the manager can now become a regional manager, there can become a head tech. Your team can start to train other teams and so it's actually very exciting from a professional perspective for the team members at your practice. And in many ways, holding on to it can be a selfish move because it stunts their professional growth. And then she really started her next chapter. She's passionate about philanthropy, so she really started her focus on her philanthropic interests. And she got to travel more, be with family and friends. And most importantly, she continued to be a veterinarian. Her passion is doing dentistry. And so this is what she wanted to focus on. And now this is all she had to focus on was simply being a veterinarian. So it's very important for you to understand that by selling your practice, you're not selling out. You're not losing your identity as a veterinarian. You're just getting rid of all the headache and the HR and the back office and the recruitment and the team management. All that aspect gets off your plate. And the amazing thing is that you're paid millions of dollars to do so. And that's at least in today's environment. And I'll be doing another video on how valuations are changing and what the threats are coming into the industry. For example, there is legislation that's coming in attacking the veterinary buyers, and this could have a dramatic impact on veterinary valuations. So just in terms of, I guess, not about transitions elite specifically, but why choose or why get get representation when doing the sale. So representation is critical because it will organize your practice. It'll do your adjusted EBITDA. It'll create an attractive package. It needs to create a competitive bidding environment, run that, precisely. And then through the due diligence, do that as quickly as possible so that there's no games that are played by the buyer. And so to give you a next step in terms of what to do, in the description below, click the link. It is for a free practice value estimate exclusively for veterinary practice owners in the US and Canada. And we'll sit down either with myself or my team, and we'll really just talk about your practice. What's the value? Who are the buyers? And most importantly, what are the 5 key profit drivers that you can use in your practice to increase the profitability, whether you want to do that now, whether you want to sell now or you want to sell in the future. That link is in the description. Click it. Check the availability. Often there's a waiting list, but if you click it and you see it, then make sure you grab it. And if you enjoyed this video, please click like or subscribe. Then you'll get these videos that will come up in YouTube. And I'm going to be doing a lot more of these. And if you're a practice owner, I think these are going to be super valuable. So talk to you soon.